You are tuned into Shot City Lives with Mike Rice on Q4 Radio. Thanks again to Jill Flanagan from Force and Femininity, the first act of the show tonight, and also our most recent guest, Kyle Kramer. Check out the stuff. It's really cool, and also I think it's just inspirational and gets the youngins interested, and the old ones interested in just this kind of great big universe we live in, and we're moving right along. We had like a mixed bag. I kind of love it. Jill's music, and now I'm talking to Kyle, and now Miss Heather Bodie. Erasing Miss, you prefer Miss?
You know.
Doesn't matter. You're the artistic director of Erasing the Distance.
I am.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
And let's just jump into this. What is Erasing the Distance? Don't you give the pitch? I can give this pitch, but I hate when people do that, when they're like the interviewer gives the thing, because I remember I'd much rather hear it from the horse's mouth as it is.
So we are a documentary theater organization. We've been around. This is our 14th season.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm serious.
Oh, my gosh.
You're
wow.
14. Yeah, we were founded in 2005. And essentially what we do is we sit down with folks who've had experiences with mental illness or mental health issues, or maybe have cared for or have a loved one who has, and give them an open forum to share whatever story they feel compelled to share with us. And we transcribe those interviews, and then we shape that sometimes 30, 40, 50 pages worth of text down into about a 10-minute monologue and hire professional actors to perform it.
How long does it normally take to pare these down? I know it depends, but it sounds like a very arduous process, because that's a lot of thoughts, and if you want to do justice to what's going on, that's...
Yeah, and it can be really heartbreaking sometimes in the process. You know, we sit with folks from anywhere between 45 minutes to 2 hours. We're actually putting up a show in the spring where we did over 7 hours worth of interviewing.
Oh my goodness.
And so the amount of information and the breadth of the human experience in somebody's story is so nuanced. And when they sit with you for 2 hours, I mean, you really, really get to know them. To shape that down into a 10-minute piece becomes this sort of heartbreaking task of, well, we'll not talk about that point in their life,
right,
or let's remove that story about the dog, or removing significant relationships or cities they lived in, just to sort of distill it down. Yeah. But for me, our goal with sharing those stories is not to put that person we sat with, that exact person, that whole person, up on stage.
Right.
Because we know that the minute they walk out the door, they're already different.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the goal with those stories is to get to the essence of their experience and what they shared, and ultimately just give people a window in so that the folks listening to the stories feel a little less isolated, and get kind of an inside look into an experience that maybe if they aren't having a similar experience, it's one that they are maybe experiencing some large amount of stigma around. And when you get that nuanced look into somebody's life, it can really open up some doorways and thought processes.
So how long have you been involved with the company?
I've been with Erasing the Distance for 5 years.
Okay. And you just became artistic director in May?
February.
In February.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is this more challenging than you anticipated it was going to be, or did you kind of know what you're getting in store for?
Ooh, I didn't know you were going to ask me that one. I like it. I'd been serving on staff for almost a year and a half at the time that I transitioned to the role of artistic director. So I had a pretty intimate idea of what I was getting into. I will say that it's been a very interesting transition to be a person who has practiced the arts, studied the arts, and worked in the arts for this long, to move into a role with the title of artistic director, to see just how big of a percentage of that role is administrative.
Yeah.
And people management. And
yeah,
that sort of
of course.
thing,
Oh, yeah.
So I moved from a place of making art 80% of the time and administrating probably 20% to probably the flip right now.
The flip now.
Mm-hmm.
And also, too, you're coming into, because because you guys have a specific thing that you focus on. You focus on mental health issues, and and that's different than most almost all theater companies. They're kind of a willy-nilly. You're performing whatever you're producing whatever you want to produce. So going from being an artist and also now taking on this other role of being an interviewer, and in the process, I mean, do you find yourself feeling like you have to be almost a counselor at times, to get the story I guess to get maybe the story that you think needs to be told? Are you you're wearing more hats than you also thought you'd wear, besides the administration stuff, but like the actual work? Do you find you're wearing more hats?
I think the nature of the work puts us in a position, myself specifically, but I think everyone in the organization, to wear more hats and to often land in the role of a compassionate set of ears.
Yeah.
That said, we do try to be sort of explicit about the fact that we're artists, not clinicians.
Okay.
So we don't play the role of therapist.
Yeah.
And some people do express both sharing and performing and seeing our work as a therapeutic experience, but we don't claim
to do that. Yeah, I wouldn't think you would claim to be, but I have to wonder if you just kind of find yourself in that spot, because you're talking to individuals who sometimes just want to talk to somebody, I would imagine. They want their story told. And I'm just curious, like, how these things, these roles maybe they're taking on in this, that, as regular artists, theater artists, you don't have to do.
Well, we have a distinct way we approach the methodology. And so I could speak to a little bit about how we teach people
please
to interview.
Yeah.
So essentially, because we are artists and not clinicians, our end goal is to make sure that the story holds up theatrically, which does not mean drama. It means specifics.
Right.
It means imagery. It means memories. It means the senses. What did it smell like? What did it look like? What did it feel like? For us, working in mental health specifically, we find that people speak about their mental health, not very open, very frequently. And when they do, they use words that are commonly accepted. So people will say things like, I was so depressed, or I was so anxious. For us, we coach people who are sitting collecting stories to say things like, what does depression look like for you? What does it feel like for you?
Right.
When you have a panic attack, what does that mean?
Right. It's very specific.
Yeah, just to get people to the specifics. So in that way, we do just get curious. I mean, more than anything else, we're there to listen for what they want to share and how they want to share it, and watch for those moments that are particularly seem to be important to the person who's sharing, and then dig deeper.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, if folks are talking about like the home they grew up in or a family pet, we say things like, take us back to your favorite day, take us back to that night. And that sort of leads them down a path that often they didn't come in prepared to share.
Right.
So folks do come in like, I know what I'm here for today, and I will start right here, and I'm going to finish here. And then they find that throughout that time, as we sort of carefully weave into the details of the story, that they surprise themselves.
Yeah.
And that's really, I think, those transformative moments that folks reflect on. They often say like, I never thought about that before, or, this hasn't come out of my mouth this way until today. And it's that stuff that sticks when they leave. So, and that's the magic. That's the stuff that really makes our work really, really rewarding.
Well, and also, and I would imagine it gives you, it gives you stuff more to work with. I mean, I mean, absolutely. The stuff that, because you got to, my assumption is that when they're saying things that they didn't anticipate, that's from way deep down, and it's also like there's some honesty and truth to that. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't. It just comes out, and so there's a lot more to grab onto for the artists, and when you guys are constructing these stories. I mean, that's my assumption anyway.
That's absolutely it. We talk all the time about vulnerability and the power. Vulnerability is really risky.
Yeah.
To allow yourself to be vulnerable in front of a group of people, in front of a partner ever.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
is you're putting a lot out there and risking a whole lot. But with our work, the rewards are just endless when someone's willing to be vulnerable. So it is those moments where we create an environment, or we hope to create an environment that feels safe and compassionate and non-judgmental, and so that those little moments can come up, so that people really can lay everything out on the table and have those discoveries. It's really cool. I love it.
You're making discoveries together, which I think is that's a really cool thing. And there's also, everybody needs a buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody needs somebody, especially when they're going through something vulnerable, whether they realize they're being vulnerable or not. We all need somebody. We all need a buddy for that kind of stuff sometimes,
Yeah, and folks in our lives, friendships, family members, there's a dialogue there.
Yeah.
And usually an aim for solution, in the fix-it game. We really pride ourselves in leaning into silence and letting someone else sit with the silence until they're ready to speak again. And at the end of it, we're not clinicians.
Right.
There's no assessment. There's no diagnosis,
Right.
So in that setting, it's not very often in our lives that we have just 2 straight blank hours to tell whatever story we feel like sharing.
Yeah. I've had those experiences, but usually like on the bus here in Chicago, or at the bus stop, or in Uptown where I live. Still just have a nice 30-minute conversation with somebody that, and sometimes it's the same person. They told you the same thing a week before that, but that's a whole other thing. So you guys have a festival coming up next month. Full disclosure, I'm part of this, and I'm excited to be part of this. And so let's talk about the festival. This is, how many years have you guys been doing the festival now?
So this is the second year that we've done a festival format, but this year we shifted it a little bit. So it does run for